some interesting stuff in the news today. You know, we all read in the WikiLeaks of Hillary's emails that she and Frederick Douglass were dancing in the streets because of the massacre in that sanctuary city, you know, Bowling Green, Kentucky. And apparently that's why we need to loosen gun restrictions on the mentally ill, as the Republicans did yesterday and day before yesterday in Congress. Seriously. No, I'm not making this up. If you are so mentally ill that you can receive Social Security benefits before you're 65, in other words, you're so disabled by your mental illness, then under current law, you can't buy a gun. The Republicans just voted to overturn that so that people who are profoundly mentally ill, so mentally ill that, you know, they're on disability for it, can buy guns. Now, I realize, you know, probably the vast majority of people who are mentally ill and on disability are not violent, and they're not going to kill somebody. You know, depression takes its toll. It's, you know, and in the age of Trump, there's probably, you know, more and more people, you know, at the very least going to their doctor and saying, hey, you know, how about a little something, you know, Valium or Prozac or whatever these, you know, whatever it is these days. But guns? I mean, if you're looking for a cohort of people where a larger significant proportion represents a threat than the general population, I would say, you know, looking at the mentally ill who are disabled by it might be a place that you would want to start. And then let's also end the limits on how much coal waste can be dumped in our rivers and streams. Why? So that, you know, terrorists like those guys who did the Bowling Green Massacre can't hide guns in our rivers. Now, everybody's making fun of Kellyanne Conway right now, because last night on MSNBC, she, with a straight face, said to Chris Matthews, you know, this wasn't reported much, and, you know, most people don't even know about this, but the Obama administration suspended their, you know, visa program, their refugee program or whatever it was from Iraq for 6 months because of the Bowling Green Massacre. Well, it's two untruths, two lies. First of all, there was no massacre in Bowling Green, Kentucky. And secondly, what happened, there were two guys in Bowling Green who were Iraqi, you know, refugees or whatever I'm not sure if they were refugees or immigrants, but they were Iraqis. And they got caught up in an FBI sting operation, and apparently one of them had also shipped money off to Iraq. One of them is serving a life sentence, and the other is serving a 40-year sentence in prison right now. And as a consequence of that, the Obama administration added things to the vetting process for Iraqi, you know, people coming from Iraq to the United States, whether it's refugees or you know, visa holders. There was no delay. I mean, it slowed things down, but there was no ban. There was no 6 months, and there was no massacre. Now, you know, this is the #1 trending thing on Twitter, and a lot of people are having fun with this. And, you know, oh, isn't this? I mean, you know, it's in fact, actually, some of them are pretty funny. You know, for example, these are just, you know, various tweets. Guys, these Bowling Green Massacre jokes are a little too soon. Out of respect, we should wait until it takes place. K Stewart 33 compiled all these over at DU. Saddened and sickened by Frederick Douglass's silence surrounding the Bowling Green Massacre. Sean Spicer, more people were killed in the Bowling Green Massacre than were killed in the Battle of Gettysburg, period. Please donate everything you can, anything you can spare to Nigerian Prince Emmanuel's fund for the victims of the Bowling Green Massacre. Before the day is out, Trump will recall seeing thousands of Muslims celebrating the Bowling Green Massacre. Sometimes the way people talk, it's as if the Bowling Green Massacre never even happened. Oh, that's sad. I wrote a book report on the Bowling Green Massacre in my alternative history class. My teacher, Mrs. DeVos, gave me an A on it. I lost my cousin-in-law at the Bowling Green Massacre. I was there that day. Thankfully, my friend Frederick Douglass and I were able to escape in the Underground Railroad. When will Hillary be investigated for her role in the Bowling Green Massacre? You know, and then it goes on. I mean, but here's where it actually gets serious. Oh, and Bowling Green Massacre. Give her a break, people. Kellyanne meant Bowling Green mascara. And then somebody else tweets, living through 9/11 was one thing. I don't know if I can make it through the Bowling Green massacre. So, you know, it's being treated like it's funny, but there was one serious post, and I thought it was a good one. I don't know which history book this came from. It's actually, this is from PBS. It's a clip, but I don't know where on PBS it came from because it was tweeted. But it, you know, when you hit on it, you get this PBS link. And it says, on February 27th, 1933, the German parliament, the Reichstaggebäude, the parliament building, the German parliament building burned down due to arson. The government falsely portrayed the fire as part of a communist effort to overthrow the state. Now, what actually happened was, I mentioned Marius van der Lubbe before. He was the guy. He was this Dutch guy who was mentally ill, apparently profoundly mentally ill, that a group of Nazis literally smuggled from, I mean, there was an office building next to the Reichstag building, next to the Parliament building, that had an underground tunnel between the two of them. This is all fairly well documented. And they escorted him through this underground, just like we have in D.C. here. I mean, all these buildings are connected with underground tunnels. In fact, there's even an underground railway between the White House and Congress and whatnot, and the various congressional buildings and the Capitol building. So, you know, some Nazis smuggled Marius van der Lubbe into the Parliament building where he set fire to the tapestries. I mentioned this yesterday on the air. And then it follows. Okay, so that was February 27th. On February 27th, using emergency constitutional powers, Adolf Hitler's cabinet issued a decree for the protection of the German people. This decree placed constraints on the press and authorized the police to ban political meetings and marches, effectively hindering electoral campaigning. A temporary measure, it was followed by a more dramatic and permanent suspension of civil rights following the February 27 burning of the Parliament building. So the emergency measures had been put in place 3 weeks earlier. It's sort of like the Muslim ban, only this was more radical. This was in 33, keep in mind. And still, I mean, this was, as Hitler was rising to power, this was, you know, in 36, he was literally the most popular leader in the world. He, on the cover of Time magazine. The Germans loved him overwhelmingly. So when a spokesperson for the White House is continually putting out lies, or, you know, I mean, Kellyanne Conway is saying now today that she meant to say Bowling Green terrorists. Really? When a spokesperson for the government lies to us through our press, we should be very concerned. The other big hysteria going on right now is, you know, around this right-winger who is going to speak at the University of California at Berkeley, and some people in the crowd put on black ski masks and started fires and started beating people up and stuff. And Robert Reich was there, the former labor secretary under Bill Clinton. He's now a professor at UC Berkeley. And he said he saw those people, and he said they all looked like they were paramilitary. They were not students. They were not hippies. They were not, you know, or whatever, you know, they looked paramilitary. They were, this is how it happens. Marius van der Lubbe was, you know, burned the Reichstaggebäude on behalf of the Nazis. And Robert Reich is like right there on television saying, you know, basically this was a false flag operation. This was, I mean, he didn't use that phrase, I will. This riot at the University of California, Berkeley was done by right-wingers in order to provide, you know, another grievance, which is pretty astonishing when you get right down to it. It's you know, very astonishing. And yes, the Republicans have passed legislation out of the House of Representatives to make it easier, to make it, you know, easy, actually, for somebody with severe mental illness to buy a gun, number one. And number two, to dial back the Obama administration restrictions on how much coal mining waste can be dumped into rivers and streams. So now, you too can have dangerously polluted water while the coal companies make more profits. Yes, the Republican Party is the wholly owned arm of corporate America and the billionaires that it has created. It's that simple. The last thing I would add to this, and it's Anything Goes Friday, so, if there's anything you want to talk about, feel free to call. I've got a whole pile of stories here I want to get to and through, but, we can sprinkle them throughout the day. But the last thing that I wanted to share with you is there's a great story by David Korten over at Yes Magazine. We had Sarah Van Gelder on the program a couple days ago. She's the editor of Yes Magazine. YesMagazine.org, the website. And David Korten, who is a friend and colleague and just an absolutely brilliant man, the author of When Corporations Rule the World and numerous other books. He says, take notice, Trump, we are not protesters, we are protectors. And David is suggesting that we change the frame, that the frame that we've been using up until this point is we are protesting their actions. Instead, we should say we are protecting our nation. We are protecting our values. We are protecting our brothers and sisters. We are protecting our fellow human beings. We are protecting life on this planet. And as I was reading his article, it struck me, and you can find it over at Yes Magazine, it struck me that this is actually the frame that conservatives have been using. I don't know if this was a Frank Luntzism or if where or when this originated, but conservatives for most of my life have been using as a justification for pretty much everything they do that they're trying to, quote, protect the Constitution. Right? We can't have gay people get married because that's not in the Constitution, and we've got to protect the Constitution. We have to honor the Constitution. We can't have limits on gun ownership because, the right to bear guns is in the Constitution. We have to protect that. We can't have minimum wage laws because that violates the constitutional right to contract. We need to protect the Constitution. Virtually every right-wing position that I can think of is presented in a protection frame. Now, I would suggest that we need to portray ourselves as protectors of American values. We need to protect ourselves, present ourselves as protectors of, frankly, of religious values, for that matter, if you're religious. If you're not, of secular values, of traditional human values. Trump at the prayer breakfast yesterday, in addition to asking them to pray for Arnold Schwarzenegger's ratings, which had to be a slap in the face to them, although I think they took it as a joke, which I think it was intended to be, but whatever. Also said that he wants to do away with the Johnson Amendment, which says that churches can't be politically active. So, he wants basically, preachers in the pulpit to be able to preach politics. Well, be careful. This might backfire. The civil rights movement came out of the black church. There is the anti-nuke program. Now, I'm talking nuclear bombs back in the 50s and 60s. The anti-nuclear program came out of the Catholic Church in large part. Father Berrigan and his brother and all those guys. So I think that that's a really great suggestion of David's, that we start talking about how we are protecting. And one of the things we need to protect is the integrity of reality, which is under assault right now with things like the Bowling Green Massacre, which didn't happen. We'll be back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
By the way, Kellyanne Conway was invoking the so-called Bowling Green Massacre as justification for this administration's Muslim ban. Bizarre.